Welcome, everybody. My name is Scott Gelbach. I'm a professor in the political science department in the Harris School of Public Policy at the University of Chicago. Thank you for joining us for our session on life and organization management in war-torn Ukraine. So this is really a unique opportunity, I think, to understand how the war has affected everyday life and how people and organizations have adapted to the war in a way that is probably hard for us to understand just through our daily reading of the newspapers or however else we might be acquiring information about the war in Ukraine. We have today with us representatives from business, from government, from medicine, from education, from the nonprofit sector in Ukraine, who will speak to us about their experiences over the last 2+ months and how they have responded to the war and how their organizations have responded to the war. So we hope that this will be a great event for everybody. Let me just highlight briefly, you can see it here on the screen, the very large number of organizations that have co-sponsored this event. I won't read through the full name of every organization, but let me just say that we have Centers for the Study of the Region and associated departments at Chicago, at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, at Indiana University, at George Washington, at Duke, at Millikan, who have all kindly co-sponsored this event. The event is also co-sponsored by the Partnership for the Advancement of Refugee Rights, the International House at the University of Chicago, Berkeley for Ukraine, and then two organizations that let me highlight in particular, because we'll be hearing from their representatives today, Leading Women of Tomorrow and Enlightening Initiative, which is a nonprofit youth organization based in Ukraine. So let me turn the mic for a second to Abby Hoover, who is the Director of Domestic Partnerships for Leading Women of Tomorrow, to provide some additional opening remarks. Abby.
Hi, thank you. And thank you, Scott. So I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Abby Hoover. As Scott said, I'm the Director of Domestic Partnerships at Leading Women of Tomorrow. We're a student-run nonprofit with chapters at colleges all over the country in the United States. We focus on empowering young women in public service and leadership. So thank you to the University of Chicago and the Enlightening Initiative for bringing us on today. We're thrilled to be co-hosting and participating. The panelists today are doing such important work, as you all know, during this time of crisis in Ukraine. And we're so grateful to have this opportunity to support this work and learn more about what they're doing and the ways we can get involved. So thank you so much, and I'll give that back to you, Scott.
Great, thanks so much, Abby. Let me now turn the microphone to Anna Harus. Anna is the Director of Enlightening Initiative, which is a youth non-governmental and nonprofit organization based in Kharkiv in Ukraine. Let me just emphasize that Enlightening Initiative has done a lot of really outstanding humanitarian work and has actually partnered with some students, undergraduate and graduate students here at the University of Chicago, who have done fundraising to benefit the work that Enlightening Initiative is doing. So Anna, let me turn the microphone to you. Maybe you can further introduce yourself and then introduce our speakers one by one as we hear from them. Anna.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Harus, and I'm the director of a youth NGO, Enlightening Initiative. In Ukrainian, it's Osvichena Initiativa, which is the organizer of this event from the Ukrainian side. And we turned to the University of Chicago and other American colleagues with this initiative to hold an event. And our goal is to convey to you first-hand information about current needs in Ukraine and why we need support. For this, we invited various speakers from different professional fields in Ukraine. They are all Ukrainian professionals who have been doing hard work for over 2 months, soon almost 3 months of this full-scale war in their workplaces, non-stop and 24/7. And we believe we should be heard, and we have a lot to tell you and share some insights. On this slide, you can see the map of Ukraine as of April 3rd, which I took from an open source. And this map shows the scale of territorial invasion into Ukraine. The red colored areas are the areas which were invaded by Russia, temporarily occupied, and some of them were liberated, of course. But this is for you just to see the scale of how our country suffered. And of course, air raids and shellings have been throughout the whole territory of Ukraine. And here on the left-hand side, you can see the comparison of the size of Ukraine to the United States, also from open sources. And on the right-hand side, you can see the pictures of beautiful Ukrainian cities, which now look more tragic, unfortunately. And with this, I will speak briefly about our organization. As I mentioned, we are based in the cities of Kharkiv and Kyiv. We originate from the city of Kharkiv in the east of Ukraine. Before the war, we were doing educational projects with the US Embassy Kyiv, with the Erasmus Plus program of the European Commission, and we were developing IT solutions, artificial intelligence powered solutions for education for young people, for their career enhancement. And all of this was stopped because of the war, unfortunately paused. And we started fighting on the humanitarian side of this war. We did a lot of things during all these days. We applied our IT expertise to develop a digital management system of humanitarian aid logistics in the first weeks of war. We were simultaneously doing fundraising, obtained foreign grants and individual donations to support Ukrainians in the frontline regions under shellings. We have a volunteer network in south and eastern regions of Ukraine, basically throughout Ukraine, and they disseminate our aid, humanitarian aid and financial aid to people. And we established business partnerships with Ukrainian businesses to help them operate during the war, and we get medicine, food from them, which we disseminate among people. So this is very briefly, we are adjusting our needs constantly, because the situation is changing every day. We partner with other organizations, and the result of our work can be seen in the reports on our website, detailed reports. And on the slide, we totally have collected around the aid around $50,000 US, and most of it was allocated. And of course, we need your support. If you're willing to support us, we would be happy. All the donation information is on our website, and we will direct these funds to purchase food, medicine, ready-to-eat meals for Ukrainian people. With this very brief introduction, I move to our next speaker. We start from state authorities. Our first speaker is Mikita Shilenko. He works at Kharkiv Regional State Administration, which is an executive branch of Ukrainian state in the Kharkiv region. This region is bordering Russia. It is in the east. The front line is in Kharkiv region now. Some territories are partly occupied, and active military actions have been ongoing there all the time. So Mikita, please tell us, how do you manage to maintain executive power in Kharkiv region, and specifically, how are you helping Ukrainian people who are in the occupied parts of Kharkiv region?
Greetings to everyone. Thank you once again for an opportunity to present the current situation in Kharkiv region. From the beginning of the full-scale Russian invasion, we are indeed on the front lines. Some of our territories are still occupied, and people have to hide in shelters because of constant bombings and artillery fire. Almost every day, we have casualties and, unfortunately, death among the civilians. Starting from the 24th of February, our daily work activities changed. However, our regional administration did not stop to operate. We worked on the 24th, 25th of February, and so on. We provide vital support, consulting, help, and evacuation to the citizens of our region where it is possible. Some of our civil servants work remotely, and some are at the administration, with the relocation, evidently, because our administration building was hit by the Russian missile. And by the way, it is the second time when this building suffered because of Russia. In 2014, the first floor of it was burned out by the Russian militia groups. In order to organize the distribution of humanitarian aid, our administration created a humanitarian hub. We distribute aid via our local post offices in Kharkiv and directly deliver it to our local communities to which we have access. The cities and communities in the region which are occupied now are almost unreachable for us because of enemy forces which create a danger to anyone who tries to deliver help. As a result, a lot of such cities and villages are on the brink of humanitarian crisis. Volunteers try to deal with that and deliver something for those who suffer the most. And at the same time, they put their life at risk. Also, the situation improves thanks to our brave and strong servicemen and servicewomen who liberate our territories. Nevertheless, until the war rages, we still have a constant need for food, medications, and of course, modular shelters for those who lost their homes, etc. Your help and support both in the international arena and in the humanitarian sphere is a part of our common victory. Together we are strong because we are united. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mikita. I hope we will be able to learn more in the Q&A session. What is the situation in the temporarily occupied parts of Kharkiv region? And now we move to the second speaker who represents local authorities. Olga Demyanenko represents Kharkiv City Council. And this is the second largest city in Ukraine, and now it is a frontline city. Ms. Demyanenko, please tell us briefly about your work during the war at the City Council, and specifically we are interested to know how does the City Council unite their efforts with volunteers to help Kharkiv citizens?
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity to be here with you. Thank you for the organizers of this event. In addition to what Nikita, my colleague already from the regional administration told us, we are working, started from the full-scale invasion of Russia, and we are working 24 hours a day for life support of our citizens. Due to the competence of the City Council and to the regional administration, just for your understanding, the regional administration is more under the competence and giving the aid to the people who are living in the regions and the villages around the city, and we are more focused on the people who are in the city. For today, in the city of Kharkiv, there is still remaining approximately 1 million people who are still living in Kharkiv in different places. Of course, a lot of them moved from the more scary, we can say, more the areas which are every day under the heavy shellings. They are more moved to another areas of the city. A lot of them are now opening evacuation, like we are saying, evacuation points for people to live there. A lot of people are still in the shellings. A lot of people are on the underground stations. It's now for today approximately 10,000 people permanently staying in the underground. All this, of course, causes a lot of efforts to give people all the needed food and all the needed first aid means to live normal life, as it could be said like that. So for today, Kharkiv city has we have a lot of partner cities and sister cities around the world. The mayor applied to the mayors of those cities with the request of humanitarian aid, and we are successfully receiving every day the railway carriages, the tracks of the humanitarian aid, which then we are distributing throughout the people who most needed them. Regarding your question, how we are cooperating with the volunteers, we have our unified hub and the unified telephone number which all the Kharkiv citizens know for today. And we are working with more than 30 volunteer groups and volunteer organizations who are helping us. We have 9 districts in the city, and we have like 3 main directions of work. The people who can come to the point in each neighborhood in the city where we are giving the humanitarian aid. We have the second line of giving the humanitarian aid, the people who are not able to come out from their houses. It's like we are calling the address aid, where we very thank to the volunteers who are working with us, because we are, as the unified hub, collecting all the addresses where what people are phoning when people are requesting, and we are sharing with the volunteers, and then they are coming to those addresses. And the third line of this group, people which are in the shillings and in the underground. So for today, we are very unifiedly, we can say, working all together, and only like that, in this cooperation all together with the volunteers, with the Kharkiv citizens, of course, we are closer to our victory, and we are living to every day with a strong spirit of that Ukraine will have the victory as soon as possible, and will come back to the normal life as we had before, because Kharkiv before was the second city in Ukraine, the most comfortable, the most beautiful city in Ukraine, and we hope that we could restore this life, and we could reconstruct our all infrastructure, and the city could be even more better than it was before. For today, regarding the destruction, I can say you that is approximately 2,000 buildings and premises are destructed, including the social infrastructures, approximately 76 schools, 56 kindergartens, 19 hospitals. A lot of architectural buildings were destructed, and so of course we will need the support. We will need the support, even the expert support, the financial support for reconstruction, for modernization, for all those needed activities for our city to have for today, to come back to the normal life after this horrible war because of the Russian Federation. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. I agree and believe that together, united with volunteers and partners, we will rebuild everything. Our next speaker is also from the policy side. It is Andriy Dekun, who is the chairman of the NGO Ukrainian Agri Council. Andriy, you represent Ukrainian agriculture producers and lobby their interests in the field of agricultural policy. Tell us your expert opinion if the potential food crisis in Ukraine and in Europe can be prevented, and how you help, what actions are undertaken to help Ukrainian agribusiness with this regard.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for invitation. Just for your understanding, Ukrainian agricultural sector is a leading sector of Ukrainian economy, which runs for 17.5% of Ukrainian GDP. And 50% of foreign currency which comes to Ukraine is coming from agricultural sector as well. Last 3 months, Ukrainian agricultural sector is blocked. Because Ukrainian ports are blocked. We cannot sell anything. And for today, we have more than 20 million tons of extra grain. So I do not expect any food crisis in Ukraine or Europe, but we expect a big food crisis globally, because the previous 20 million tons we are not able to export, and new harvest is coming soon, and we assume that more or less 20 to 30 million extra tons of grain would not be exported if if Ukrainian ports are not deblocked. So from the beginning of the war, on the second day, we start to deliver food to main cities of Ukraine. It's Kyiv, it's Nikolaev, it's Kharkiv, and many other cities. We have a big network of more than 1,000 farmers all over the country, so it was very easy for us to organize. And up to now, we are delivering food and wheat to all the cities, and it counts for thousands of tons. We are not specialized in that before, but it's just we understood that Russian tactic would be to surround the city and then wait until people have no food. The other main issue, as you remember from the very beginning and from the map shown, that the front line was over 500 kilometers, and many farmers were afraid whether to go to the field in springtime or not to go. And the main issue was that we managed to communicate to the office of president, and it was a clear message from him that farmers should go to the fields both on occupied territories and not occupied territories, because according to Ukrainian legislation, if you work on occupied territory, it's a collaboration, it's called. So it's a criminal case after the occupation. Since we used to work in Lobinki a lot, our think tank started to work immediately with Ukrainian Ministry of Agriculture, Ukrainian Ministry of Finance, and Ukrainian Agricultural Committee both for taxation, because a lot of changes are in these fields, and the main thing we need to do is that people and business can operate in a normal way. In order to say, my deputy now is a deputy ministry. She becomes like a few days ago. So we are trying, we have this big think tank, and it helps a lot now, our government. And another thing which is important, and we try to do on media, not only in Ukraine, but globally in European countries, in United States, is the issue of global food crisis. And we need to deblocate the ports. That is the main issue for us at the moment. We also have started a charity fund which is called Safe UA. Now we register this charity fund in EU, and we will do it probably in United States as well. And actually we have two directions. Direction number one are children, because we have a big human crisis with refugees, because it's like 5 million people left Ukraine to EU, but more than 10 million people, they are internal refugees. They moved from eastern and southern part of Ukraine, and now they are in the mid part of Ukraine and on the west. So it's 5 million totally went to EU and 10 million inside of the country. So it's huge pressure on all cities, and we need to somehow we need to feed these people. Now we do it like volunteers, trying to do it in every city, but a lot of humanitarian aid is coming from European Union, but we think that the best thing would be to help is to send money, because money you can buy more food in Ukraine, and it doesn't make any sense to bring sugar, wheat, or whatever other products or sausages, for example, from EU to Ukraine by killing in this way Ukrainian economy. So our idea is that we want to help farmers, to motivate farmers to produce more food, and give this food for free for people who internally move people in Ukraine. And also a lot of attention we want to pay to children, because they are really in a big stress, both who are moved and not moved. For last 4 years, we have been developing in Ukraine, Ukraine organization, which is called Future Farmers of Ukraine. It's complete prototype, complete copy-paste from American Future Farmers of America. We invited 4 years ago professors from Missouri, and they helped us to launch this project. So it was growing organically, and it's about leadership, about innovation, about agricultural sector, and it goes very good. And now we have a target to start such organization in every school of Ukraine, and to help in this way to help children. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrei, for your insights. I believe that the audience will learn even more about the challenges that agribusiness is facing during the Q&A session. And now we are moving from agribusiness to IT business. Our next speaker is Andrew Ganin, who is the founder and chief executive officer of IT company ActiveChat, based in the USA. And Andrei, has it been possible for you to retain your American clients and also help Ukraine? Tell us more about this.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for the introduction. Great opportunity to speak. And yes, we did retain customers. I definitely have to admit that war is a huge disaster. Even when everyone is talking about it, the war always comes unexpected. But if you perceive it as a disaster only, you definitely cannot win. So the war, to me at least, is a huge challenge at the same time. And I believe that we at ActiveChat are doing pretty well. As Anna said, I'm Andrew, the founder and CEO of ActiveChat. We are a United States-based company, a startup with almost 100% Ukrainian team. Over 60% of our customer base comes from United States. We help companies build better conversations with their customers through the use of modern machine learning technology, and we help developers save tons of their time by simplifying the process of development of the virtual assistant or a chatbot. Our customers tell us that they can build their virtual assistants 10 times faster and 10 times more powerful than with any other tool in the market. And this is the core feature that we used to help many Ukrainian teams in the recent 2 months. When the war hit, we were approached by a number of volunteer teams across Ukraine who needed smart chatbots for coordination, logistics, or communication. And we managed to build these bots in days instead of weeks and months that would be required otherwise. We built a dozen of different guerrilla bots, what I call them, mostly on Telegram and website chat to report lost people, to coordinate local volunteer efforts, and even collect funds. And all this was happening in times of huge stress, team relocation, and uncertainty. What we learned from this experience is that it doesn't matter how big or small you are. What matters most is how focused and calm you can stay and how you can use your available tools and knowledge to help others in need. The war definitely put a huge toll on us. We had to relocate the team. We lost contact with some of our developers. Some customers got worried about the stability of the platform since the team is from Ukraine. We had to hire new developers fast and rearrange operations in this stressful environment. But it looks like we are doing quite well now. We get an astonishing amount of support from our customers and international community. Bots that we have built are actually helping Ukrainian people, and we even managed to collect over $15,000 in direct help to volunteers in Ukraine. Lessons learned by me as a startup founder in times of war: stay cool, stay human, stay focused, help others, treat your team as a family, and be as remote and location independent as possible. We're looking to introduce our tool to as many potential customers as possible. So if you know any company with a huge amount of day-to-day customer communication, like telecom, finance, utilities, or e-commerce, I would love to do a quick demo for them. And regarding the humanitarian aid itself that we are discussing today, I would say that it's absolutely necessary, and we do our best to get and distribute as much as possible. But any humanitarian aid is no good without military support. The reason is, without military support, there will never be enough humanitarian aid because the number of victims will continue to grow every day. Ukraine needs fighter jets, Ukraine needs long-range missiles, guarantees for safe passage, extraction of the Azov battalion and the border guards from the Azovstal factory. And not in a month, not tomorrow, now. And this, combined with all the support and humanitarian aid we get, will definitely put an end to this nightmare. Thank you so much for having me. I will be happy to answer any questions. Our COO is also here, so she can help too. Thank you so much. Stay cool.
Thank you, Andrew. My NGO has an experience of fruitful cooperation with Andrew in the first weeks of war when we worked together with other famous IT companies developing this digital system for humanitarian aid. So I can highly recommend Andrew and his company for cooperation. Our next speaker is from a different field, from healthcare. It is Vadim Aristov. He is a Ukrainian doctor, President Emeritus of Ukrainian Medical Association. Vadim, We have worked with your organization we were together cooperating, and Vadim's organization was helping us to purchase smartly medicine for citizens under siege, for operating rooms. And there is no volunteer in Ukraine actually who hasn't purchased medicine. For hospitals, citizens in bomb shelters, why do volunteers play such an important role to help the state hospitals in Ukraine during the war? And tell us more, how is your team helping Ukrainian doctors and hospitals?
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you very much to all organizers who created this important webinar and raise awareness about needs of Ukraine and exactly in healthcare. Healthcare is the second area after the military area, the second area where the deaths and disabilities can be prevented, because during shellings, during bombings, during any war activities, there are lots of casualties that are brought to hospitals, and they are carried. And they are carried with some supplies that exist inside hospitals and with hands of doctors that still are there inside these hospitals. But we have a huge problems with both of these, with supplies and with doctors. So why it happened and why volunteers are so important, and why, of course, international aid is so important to bring it to volunteers or to hospitals both. So first answer is that there was no stock and no huge preparation for this war. Of course, we heard that there may be a war. We heard it from United States partners from, I think, from September of previous year. But hospitals in Ukraine does not have so much money to buy stock in advance. Our healthcare system is in transition. We are under healthcare reforming now. So this January was specific months when there was not enough money at all in hospitals. They had even to cut their staff from 10 to 30% because there was not enough money for even a basic salary per month. So it was really not enough resources to buy something in advance. And when the war started, then in some of these regions, the need became so high that really doctors tried to decide what patients they need to spend these limited resources. The second answer is that all suppliers, all these logistical chains are destroyed because many of warehouses were hit by rockets. It's like 400 drug stores destroyed now. Huge distribution networks was not able to serve all hospitals, and new like chains are created, and usually hospitals now depend on volunteers who hire small buses who take something from the border and bring it exactly to these hospitals. But this is not systemical approach, and of course there are huge gaps in different items to serve. And again, the third answer is no supply items, because many manufacturers in Ukraine are destroyed or their stock is destroyed. So Ukrainian economy is highly dependent now from our Western partners, and many things are just could be brought through border to these hospitals, and this distribution still depends on either for hospital administrators or on volunteers who supply them. And the last thing, of course, we need to say, speaking about organizational management, Ukraine is again has healthcare in transition. So we had a centralized management of healthcare system, and this is now past of Ukraine, and now we have decentralized management. So each hospital is put aside, and they need to be managed from their own. But usually, on the head of hospitals, there are doctors who has no any management skills, any prediction models, some mathematics calculations, so on. So these hospitals try hard to serve patients, but they need their back to cover. So our organization created STINGMD initiative, which called to international doctors and biomedical researchers to sign our petition and to raise, put a pressure to some international politicians to put the sanctions against Russia and Belarus, because we still need lots of efforts internationally. We still have a huge gaps in military supply. We are open to all missiles and air strikes, so, and this gap is not closed now. And we still need to put a pressure in different sides, like in university programs, like PhD programs, in putting aside residency for Russian, Belarusian doctors and researchers, to stop participation of international speakers inside congresses, and even inside the World Health Organization. There are still 2 members in executive board who try to stop any support to Ukrainian healthcare. So this again is a matter for additional sanctions. So we created this STINGMD initiative, and now it is converted from just sanctions to increasing some support to military hospitals and to civil hospitals. So we created several instruments to raise awareness what is really needed inside hospitals. We spoke with lots of direct practitioners who work in frontline hospitals. We gathered tens and hundreds of different lists of needs, and we created a standardized instrument which show how to prevent deaths and how to save lives. So it's like LifeFast 5 program, list of needs to stock frontline hospitals for just for 5 days, just to be sure that if there is some shellings or some massive casualties, like in Kramatorsk recently, when rocket arrived to railroad station and 166 people were wounded just in a minute. And this mass woundings comes to hospitals where lots of doctors are already killed or they're just were evacuated. So these hospitals are out of staff, like just 10 or 30% of people, of doctors still there, and they're out of stock. They do not have enough supplies to help such massive casualties. So with all these international efforts and with all this wise management of these limited resources, we can really save a lot of lives inside Ukraine. So I ask everyone to come to our site, which is stingmd.org.ua, where you can know more about healthcare needs, healthcare situation, and you can be engaged in different ways, either by donation or by volunteering in such projects, or putting sanctions inside your research society or inside your university, just to show to Russian Federation that with such aggression, they will be a side of a whole civilized world. Thank you very much, and I hope to cooperate.
Thank you, Vadim, for such a full response about healthcare challenges in Ukraine. Our next speaker is And last speaker is Varvara Petrosova, who is a university lecturer in Zaporizhia National University. It is in the southeast of Ukraine, 30 kilometers from the front line only. And she also coordinates a volunteer hub in this university. Varvara, tell us how come your university takes care of 200 to 300 internally displaced people every day, and what is your role as a university teacher in this process?
Thank you very much. So I'm Varvara Petrosova from Zaporizhia National University, an educational and scientific center of Zaporizhia region and one of the most famous classical universities of Ukraine. Nowadays, we all have our lessons online, and university staff and students in these difficult periods, they struggle for the sovereignty and the integrity of our country in the armed forces, and some of the students and the teachers from the university, they just joined the army since February. Our university implemented different internal academic mobility for students who can't continue their education on occupied territories, and they can study online to different academic programs of our university. Also, our university, so professionals from the faculty of social pedagogics and psychology, they organize free consultations. They provide consultations for students, for the staff, for internally displaced people who come to our city, and they have problems with depression and everything. We must say that university must care not only about its first task to educate and conduct the research, but also to carry its public duty to help war-affected families. So from the first days of the war, we organized our volunteer center. We are the initiative group of teachers of the university and students. We every day we help more than 200 up to 300 people. So they are internally displaced people who come to our city, elderly people, disabled people. So we helped hospitals, military hospitals. We try to organize food and necessary goods delivery to different to people in need who are now on the occupied territories, and also almost 40% of our students, they are on occupied territories, and it's a great problem for them just to receive their education nowadays. As I mentioned, we help internally displaced people, and almost 90% of them, they are women and children from southern occupied regions. During this period of time, we helped almost 5,000 people, and even our colleagues who are not in Zaporizhia, but in different cities of Ukraine, they tried to help. They organized the delivery of the humanitarian aid to our volunteer center, so we can help people. And we help people with food, with clothes, with some hygiene, childcare products, different toys and others. And every day we give clear reports of our work on our social media. So we have got different social networking sites where we report our work. Our university also helps people with the accommodation. So many people are placed in the dormitories of our university, and nowadays there are more than 700 people there, and we also help with the food and clothes them. So we try to do our best, but of course we need some help, we need some support. And in this difficult time, I must say that all the staff of the university is very united as never before. And I think that that is the main reason for our victory. Thank you.
Thank you, Varvara. We cooperated with Varvara a lot, and our organization sends humanitarian and financial aid to Zaporizhia, to Varvara's volunteer hub, and definitely we all need support. I want to wrap up the short introductions of our panelists by appealing to you to support Ukraine, to provide humanitarian or financial aid, provide opportunities for Ukrainians, buy from Ukrainian businesses and deal with the Ukrainian businesses, organizations, also volunteer for Ukraine. You can help with business contacts, with networks to Ukrainian organizations, including those which presented today. And I appeal to you to go to the websites of our speakers who are talking to you today, and donate and support either our organization or any of the organizations of which our speakers represent. And I would be happy to answer to your questions more. With this, I pass the floor to American colleagues, moderators, to moderate the Q&A session.
Okay, thanks so much, Anna. Thanks, everybody. It's so unbelievably inspiring and sad at the same time to hear all of these accounts of how people and their organizations have responded to the war. Moving to the Q&A, we have a question from Jenna Gibson here at the University of Chicago that I think could be directed at probably any one of our panelists, and maybe more than one would care to speak to this. So she writes, several of the speakers have talked about the immediate needs, and long-term goals. How are all of you working to balance what is critically needed right now with more medium or long-term goals? And maybe like another way of phrasing this is, time is finite and you all have taken on new tasks. So what are you not able to accomplish because of all of the new work that you're doing, and how do you decide what not to do? So any one of you, if you would care to speak to this. Fadzim, I saw your hand up, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, the program that I mentioned called Life Vest 5, 5-day supply for frontline hospitals, it's the example of these long-term goals, because there are usually near each hospital or inside each city, there are some we call last mile volunteers, the people who come day by day to hospital and then raise needs. All we need like for 5 boxes of antibiotics. Next day they come to hospital. All we need 3 boxes of antibiotics. Next day they come and say 7. So day by day the needs are changing. The landscape of these needs is changing, but it's really hard to supply day by day this request, because it's nearly the same administrative load to find 5 boxes of antibiotics or 500 boxes. It's usually the same stuff of procurement, of logistic building, and all this like administrative matters. So we created some list that makes a prediction, and it put into list everything that is needed to serve 100 wounded people through the whole course of treatment. And then this list could be procured, brought to hospital, and it could be restocked if there will occur some massive woundings ahead. So it's just like strategic management of limited resources.
Thank you. Anna.
I would like Mr. Andriy Dekun to speak, and then I can add.
Thank you. So for the today, what to do is just to survive for people and survive for farmers as a business. And for the future, we need to kill not only Russians, we need to kill our Soviet mentality in many of our people. And you can do it only in a young generation. So for us, we have studied many successful countries, and we understand that we need to invest a lot of money in education. So we have, like in our normal life, we have our school, we have kindergarten, we have college, also agricultural, which is completely private initiative. But at this moment, we think that investing in children and helping them with this youth organization to start a normal youth organization in Ukraine, that's, we think, for the future is good. Thank you.
Andrew Ganin, I see, also raised his hand.
Actually, that's not Andrew, that's me. I'm trying to switch on my camera so you can see me, but somehow it's not working. I'm sorry about that. I'm Aya, the CEO of ActiveChat, and I would like to answer this question from the business perspective, not so scaled up as a government organization or an NGO. So in our case, we just split the responsibilities between those people that are able to do something immediately, or they have the how to put it in a correct form, the greater view of the greater picture. So for example, Andrew is taking care of more of an external business investment opportunities, the partnerships. I'm taking care of something that requires immediate support, immediate action. The developers are also spreading their efforts in terms of working, either solving some immediate bugs that have to be solved ASAP, and the other team is working on developing something for the future. So this is the strategy that we find more effective in these crucial times, to actually spread responsibility, to divide it rather than working as an entire group on one thing and then on the other. We just divide the responsibility.
I would like to add from the NGO perspective. As an NGO, I may say that the war has taken all the resources that we have, and I have heard this from many colleagues who work in the nonprofit sector. Like 5–10% of our activities are dedicated to our mission, and 90% even more is dedicated to humanitarian aid and work with volunteers. And this is actually a choice, because we could have continued our projects with grant funding, but when our members, when our volunteers turn to us every day saying that we are providing people in the bomb shelters with this, and hospitals with medicine, can you help us? We just cannot say, guys, we are doing here artificial intelligence projects, IT, educational projects, wait. So we decided to do humanitarian aid, which we have never done before, and this is basically all the short-term and medium-term and long-term actions until the war ends. This is briefly it.
Okay, thanks so much, Anna, and thanks everybody. Here's a question from Yevgenia Olimpieva here at Chicago, who I should mention is one of the main organizers of the event. So thanks to her for all of her effort in putting this together. So she asks, other than donating to organizations like Enlight, what can be done to help Ukrainian youth? So how do you all envision an institution like the University of Chicago or the other universities participating in this webinar? How do you envision what institutions like that could do, and what could students do to students not in Ukraine do to help youth in Ukraine?
So I think the most important nowadays, of course, that is the help. So let's be frank, that is the financial side. Yes, so we all need the finances. We really lack finances, and youth from the USA. I think it's a nice idea to have such kind of webinars in order that our students can tell their own situations and can share the situations that they have, the problems that students have nowadays. So I mean, that is about the problems of students on the occupied territories. So nowadays, more than 1,000 students, they are abroad nowadays, but still they receive their education online. So, and I think that will be a nice idea, just to share the problems and to have the communication with the leaders of our student organizations of the university.
Sorry, thanks so much, Varvara. That was great. So here's a
May
question.
I add also on this?
Yeah.
Also, I see Mr. Andriy Dekun wants to add, but I would like to briefly say that as a youth-led and youth-focused organization, it's important to, really provide opportunities which could employ Ukrainian young people, that could actually engage them in really labs in the US universities, research, something that, and this research could be Ukraine-focused, like doing developing, it's a lot of directions, developing bionic arms, developing cyber security side, here psychological support, a lot of directions. And we see a lot of opportunities from the European universities, but not so much from American universities, opportunities to Ukrainian young people. So it's actually a lot, and the economy in Ukraine is struggling, and many young people are seeking job now. And Mr. Andriy Dekun, you can add.
Thank you very much. Actually, as you understand, we are in front of global food crisis because of the war in Ukraine. And before that, Ukraine is well known as a breadbasket, but the world was using Ukraine mainly as a crop production, grain, mainly grain. It's like raw material. So we were exporting a lot of raw material. And where we could need the help of American universities is to help Ukraine to reconsider our global role in a food chain. We need to produce more added value products in Ukraine. I saw like Madison University is here as well, so they are very well known on a dairy sector, for example. So we need to have a global agricultural strategy where we could make more added value, more working places, more money in the country, better for the economy and better for the global world. Because then we could produce more per 1 hectare of our land. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Maybe we'll move on to the next question. So Helena Rott writes, so she asked about partnership with organizations or pop-up humanitarian groups outside of Ukraine, whether any of you are collaborating with established or newly established humanitarian organizations, for example, in European countries to the West, or whether your activities are purely all the initiative is taking place inside of Ukraine.
Maybe our colleagues from the local authorities and state authorities would like to add something on this, and then I can elaborate on how we cooperate. Mikita or Ms. Demyanenko.
Sorry, could you please repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question is whether you're cooperating, collaborating in any way with governments or nonprofit organizations in Europe or elsewhere?
Yeah, of course, we cooperate. First of all, we cooperate with the government organization, with our, if we talk in scale of Kharkiv region, first of all, we cooperate with our regional partners, such as partners in Poland, in Slovakia, and Albania, and Germany. We cooperate in the terms of humanitarian aid exchange and to provide information sharing, to voice up the situation, the real situation which we have in Kharkiv region, and so on. Also, we are open to cooperate with any non-governmental organization. We cooperate with I don't remember the exact name of the organization. It was American medical organization which provides help and establishing online medication consultation, something like that. Which and some of their representatives visit our region and visit our hospital and started to establish contacts and to develop partnership.
Anna, did you want to follow up?
I just wanted to add from the NGO non-profit side that it has been really challenging to cooperate with international humanitarian organizations. So, like, we have a sad experience with the UN representatives, for instance. They require, it's a really long bureaucratic procedure, and if you have never worked in the humanitarian field before, it was impossible to get in the first months of war. So basically, those are cooperating with the humanitarian missions which have already worked with them a long time ago. And apparently, because the whole country is at war, it's impossible to, they are not able to cover all the needs. And yeah, this is the sad situation, but we have, our NGO is cooperating with Italian donors and with the UK. So we are now building our partnerships because of war.
You know, we've had multiple questions in the Q&A and in direct messages to me. And I know this is a question that a lot of people in this country are asking themselves more generally, how they can best help Ukraine beyond, of course, encouraging the United States government to assist Ukraine. And so I think for a lot of people, there's a question about if they want to make a financial contribution, how best to do that. And so there are established organizations like the Red Cross that are familiar, that have a sort of awareness among typical citizens, but I don't know, may or may not be best positioned to actually provide assistance. And so so hopefully this initiative will provide some ideas for people for other ways to direct their financial support directly to your organizations. But more generally, how should our viewers, our participants in the webinar be thinking about how best to support Ukraine during the war, if people want to do that privately through their financial contributions?
Scott, I am not sure we got your question correctly. So you are saying that apparently if people are willing to support, they can donate, they can go to our websites and there is donation information. And I appeal to do this, to learn more about our work by going on our websites. And what else are you asking?
So here's another way of phrasing the question. So you collectively have seen the sort of, you're providing various sorts of assistance. You've seen the assistance that is being provided from abroad. What's missing? And if people wanted to make most use, to have the biggest impact with their contributions, what could they do to have that impact?
there are a couple of speakers who want to speak. So either Mr. Andrei Dekun or Vadim Aristov.
Okay, thank you. I think I will repeat myself, but I see that many people in EU and US, they want to help us, and they spend a lot of money. A lot of things are coming to Ukraine, but in many cases, most of the things we don't need. And it looks a little bit strange when a lot of food is coming to Ukraine. So we don't need food because, yes, we need food for internal refugees, but actually we have food in Ukraine as well. The only problem that our farmers, they don't have enough resources to give this all food for free. So in our case, as organization, we're dealing with like food people and farmers. So it's very simple. The easiest way is to donate money. For this money, we will buy food from the farmers. By this, we will help farmers, and this food will go to people who are internally moved inside the country. And it's very simple. And by this, we can buy much more food in Ukraine, because as I told you, we are blocked, we cannot export. So the food today costs much less than it costs in any European country or in the United, but I cannot even imagine how much would it cost to deliver food from US with all that logistics and so on. So why should we support Russian diesel and oil in our logistics?
Very good. Excellent point. Vadim.
Yeah, thank you. The first point I would like to raise is that everyone could put their efforts to advocacy. I have an example. We had the same StingMD initiative during Maidan, and we spread it among professors who were speakers on our congresses. And one professor in the United States, he just took his nurses, his doctor, he came to office of senator, and they stayed there until the senator spoke to them and made his influential call to Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. So it's example that during such situation, you see that national governments and supranational organizations, they do not work at all. You see that even this Lend-Lease law that gives huge, they may give huge support to Ukraine. It was signed with a huge delay. It could be signed in the beginning of April, like April the 9th, but it was actually signed on the May 9th. And still, we do not receive any anti-missile systems and aircraft to Ukraine. So day by day, Ukrainian cities are destroyed by missiles and by bombings from aircraft, but we can't defend our cities. And this is death toll which goes. So these problems will not work just by initiative of national governments. They need to be influenced by regional opinion leaders and congressmen, senators, people who can be approached by students, by researchers, professors, and so on. And the second point is about support. You need to create from your aid to smart aid. You really need to think about with what you supply to whom, because the distribution is a huge problem inside Ukraine. Many organizations just bring their aid to Western regions and then stop their activity there. And then this aid is stockpiled, for example, in Western regions. Or another example, when President Zelensky talked to Wall Street Journal summit of the top senior executives of international corporations, he told that many of these corporations just brought money to international organizations, and Ukraine never saw this support anymore. Even myself, nearby from my flat, I have a Red Cross headquarters in Ukraine. There is a huge line of white jeeps from Audi, from premium cars. You see, this car just brand new cars without any spots of mud. they are just standing in a line on the Kiev street. So I presume that many of financial support that comes to international organizations, it just goes to bureaucracy of this international organization, and not directly to patients, to wounded people, to internally displaced people, and so on. So you really need to influence your donors inside the United States, that they need to find exactly volunteers that are on the place, and they need to send money or aid that is really needed. We created Life Vest 5 programs that we don't need, for example, lots of diapers. We need antibiotics and IV solutions that will be put to wounded people. But if some international aid comes to hospital, they say that there is only like 10% of goods that could be used for medical care. Other things, there are usually some stuff that they don't even know how they will use it. They just stockpile it somewhere in backyard, and still have needs in some important things. Thank you.
I think this is a really important message, that local organizations know best what is needed. And so financial support is ideally best directed to those local organizations that know what to acquire and what to provide. Okay, let's maybe move towards the conclusion of our webinar. Maybe a last question is, so obviously there's just a lot of getting through day by day and trying to provide support and keep people alive, but at some point the war will end and people will return home. And so are you thinking ahead at this point to what happens when the war is over and you have millions of internal and external refugees reversing direction, returning to homes that in some cases are no longer there? What plans are you making, or are you able to make plans at this point for what happens when the war is over?
Yeah, if I may answer your question, the biggest problem for Ukraine at the moment that those 5 million people who left, it's women and children. And for us, they are treated in a very good way in EU, and we are very grateful for that. So the most important thing for us, for the country as it is, we need to, it's more than 1 million children. We need to return them back, and that is very important. If I want to return them back, I need to give them good conditions. So we need to rebuild all those cities. We need to create good job and so on. So we need to renew our economy. And that is the main thing. If we want to keep, because at the end of the day, we will win the war and we will have a territory without people. Because without 1 million children, we do not have any future for our generations. We will just disappear. So for us, it's very important. We will, all this, I think you all know about some kind of Marshall Plan. And in EU, they talk about Marshall Plan, and maybe in US, they talk about Marshall Plan, how to help Ukraine. And again, we don't need machinery and so on. We need business and investments in Ukraine after the war. And that is very important. We need to recover our economy. And that's main thing. After that, we can bring our Ukrainians back. Because if we will not bring them back, Putin win. And that is not what we are fighting for.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, listen, I think that's excellent. Please, Anna. Yeah.
It's really hard to plan ahead like that. Everything we are thinking about is the war, and it's occupying all spheres of life. But for sure, we are already, my organization is already developing more soft kind of programs for psychological support, for employability, because even now young people are being employed and they seek jobs. So we are trying to combine both. And on the the previous question, I just would like to add that definitely local organizations are the most effective, the fastest actually under these circumstances. And in case in case you can help with any kind of aid, I agree that financial aid would be the most effective to support Ukrainian economy and to still for us to buy from Ukrainian business. But if you can send anything from abroad, if you are traveling to the EU, you should also do it. Just every action helps. Even if you have done nothing like this before, every small action would help us in this situation.
Okay, and let me just mention that there are many good suggestions in the chat, web links for ways to help. And so probably we all know at this point that you can just go to the chat and save the chat by tapping on those three little dots in the lower right-hand corner. And so if you want to be sure that you have a record of the various suggestions for ways to help Ukraine, that's an easy way to do it, in a record that you can have going forward. Why don't we close at this point? I think this has been a really incredibly inspiring event. And I think it illustrates a story that I think those of us who maybe work on the region understand, but that the typical person may not, which is that there's an incredible strength and depth in Ukrainian civil society. And that's been evident for a long time, but it's been particularly evident in the response to the war. And I think that we've seen evidence of that today. So I thank all of our participants in various sectors of Ukrainian life for participating in this webinar. And I thank the participants, people who have taken some time today to listen to these stories. I thank especially Anna Harus for her really incredible work putting this together. And again, thanks to all of our panelists. So with that, let us close. And we wish the best of luck to everybody who participated in our panel today. And we hope to see you in person.
Thank you very much.
We also hope to see you in peaceful Ukraine soon.
We will look forward to that.